Well, Brian, was an absolutely brilliant Premier League clash this afternoon between Newcastle United and Arsenal, who take a 2-0 win and a big 3 points in what's left of the Premier League race. But just on the performance today by Arsenal, going away to a team that bullied them off the park in the reverse fixture back in January. Newcastle got the point in that game in London, getting a 0-0 draw. You'd have to say, in response to that particular game and the way they were bullied in that match, it was a really, really impressive performance by Arsenal.
Yeah, and they've had a very sticky time. Good win during the week, obviously, at Chelsea. But 4 games before that, Stephen, without getting a win, looked like their attempts to win the Premier League were crumbling with the 3 draws. Some of them disappointing. Liverpool not a massively bad result, but the draw at West Ham 2-0 up, the draw with Southampton at home 3-3, and then they were just, demolished, I'd say, by Manchester City, demolished and exposed for any weaknesses they had in that 4-1 defeat, which almost flattered them. But came back well with the win during the week and played very well today, played with strength, resilience and real threat on the counter-attack. And I thought Jorginho coming into the middle of the field made a big difference. Big call from the manager to leave out Thomas Partey, who's been the key this season, a key player for them. But Jorginho was excellent today. He gave them kind of just a presence and leadership and a good quality on the ball as well. Whereas I thought the attacking players played impressively too. Odegaard scored a great goal, made a few other chances, got a great chance to put them 2-0 up just before half time, only for Pope's excellent save. Martinelli was always a threat in the game. His ability to carry the game to Newcastle was very, very important. Defended with great vigour and intelligence, I'd nearly say too. So all round it was a very good performance. I mean, Newcastle played with the verve and intensity you expect for them, particularly in the first half. Second half, I didn't think they played as well. And they obviously got a bit frustrated and lost heart, I think, when Arsenal scored that crucial second goal by Martinelli.
What do you think was key for Arsenal? Because Newcastle came out of the blocks fast in the first half. You might even say they had the better of the play in the opening 15 minutes. And even for the most part of the first half, Newcastle played really, really well. And again, the opening stages of the second half. So what do you think was key to Arsenal keeping that clean sheet this afternoon?
Well, I need a bit of luck here and there. They got the break, obviously, in the non-penalty situation early on. They hit the post, Jacob Murphy, in the initial attack, where Arsenal struggled to get out of their own half in the first few minutes of the game. I mean, I made the comment that I don't think Nick Pope had touched the ball until Arsenal scored around the 12th minute. Up until then, Newcastle were on top. They were pressing Arsenal high up the pitch. But again, Arsenal showed character and real bottle, I thought, to keep trying to play it out from the back and playing through the press. And as the game went on, Zinchenko started to take up that midfield position to give them the overload there. That was crucial to some of the opportunities they had in the first half. How did they survive under that pressure early on? A little bit of good fortune when Jacob Murphy's chance hit the post, but also good goalkeeping from Ramsdale, where he made a really good save from coming in off the second. Willock coming in off the left-hand side, really good save. But also the unit of the back four were good, and the protection there Jorginho and Xhaka gave them. Granit Xhaka, that was, coming in beside Jorginho. They all almost, as I said in the commentary, played like a 4-4-1-1 with Odegaard, the one playing off the front who was helping out midfield. They had a good shape about them today, Arsenal, but they had to show strength and character to deal with the intensity of Newcastle's play and the raucous nature of the Newcastle fans. Fantastic atmosphere at the game today, Stephen.
Yeah, it sure was. And Arsenal did manage to see out the win and get those 3 points, which now means that they're just 1 point behind Manchester City, who have a game in hand. Manchester City will be playing against Everton next. That's at Goodison Park. And I don't know, we're going to have Arsenal against Brighton next week on News Talking Off the Ball. Like, how do you see those next 2 games? Because I'm looking at the Arsenal fixtures. They're playing Brighton at home, Nottingham Forest away, and Wolves at home. Wolves they'll probably be safe at that stage. Forest will still be battling for survival in the relegation race, or relegation battle, I should say.
Brighton are the other one, and Brighton are still well in the mix.
Trying to get into Europe.
Brighton, but they probably feel they're in the mix for a Champions League spot still if they can win all the games. I think Brighton have only played 32 games, and they Brighton play tomorrow. So Brighton will be still in the mix for a European spot. So I think Manchester City have still. Manchester City have to play Everton
away,
Brighton.
Yeah, they've got Everton away, Chelsea at home, Brighton away, and then Brentford away.
Yeah, and they've also got the 2 Champions League games in there over next week. And we saw yesterday they made, I think, 6 or 7 changes yesterday. Still looked like a strong team, but didn't win that convincingly yesterday. It was only 2-1. Now, that was the manager with an eye on the Real Madrid match during the week, saying, I will hold a few of them back. He held Jack Grealish back. Bernardo Silva was another one that didn't play yesterday. 2 important players in attacking position. It didn't look much weaker up there at that end of the pitch. Probably didn't look that much weaker all around. But at the same time, if he does that in one of these league matches and it doesn't quite come over for them, who knows? They've not gotten the easiest run in, I'd say, Manchester City. They've got 3 away games out of 4. Arsenal's trickiest match, I would say. Brighton, obviously, a very good side, are well capable of going to Arsenal and getting a point or win the match. The match will be Forest to be a difficult match because Forest will be still trying to scrape out of the relegation zone. The Wolves one, they should be capable of winning. But at this stage, would you say Arsenal get 9 points? They could get 9 points. But they might get a bit less. But I think they've got to get 9 points for if they're going to edge Manchester City, because City haven't lost a match since, I think, the Spurs match in February, and since then in the league, I think maybe they've had a couple of draws, but very few. The last have they won 10 games in a row now. So I mean, what Arsenal need to do, they've got to win their 3 games, but they only need Manchester City to draw 1 game. And that gets them back into the situation where they can win it.
It's very interesting.
That's possible. Yeah. It is interesting.
All Arsenal can do is try and keep the pressure on City, isn't it?
Yeah, really? By winning their games.
And they've done that today.
By winning their game today was vital. That there's no, that like had they only drawn today, even that would have given Manchester City comfort. What would they have had? A 3-point lead. Had Arsenal only drawn today, but now the lead is back down to 1. So it is very interesting for the few games, and particularly with Manchester City having those 2 Champions League games either side of the Everton game. That's it.
And then you're kind of looking at Newcastle, Brian, and the last couple of weeks you're feeling the way these guys are playing. They're banging form, playing really good football, especially at home. Now all of a sudden they're beaten at home, and you're kind of thinking, the Champions League qualification place, where it looked like they had it all signed, sealed and delivered, is under threat now because Liverpool are on a good run. As you mentioned, Brighton are still in the mix there. You think Tottenham might have too much to do. Manchester United, they've got a tough away game now because West Ham are in good form as we have this interview now. And look at Newcastle's fixtures. They're away to Leeds United. Leeds desperate to beat relegation. Then they're at home against Brighton, away to Leicester, and then away to Chelsea. So it's not an easy few games for Newcastle either.
No, all those teams have an interest. The ones near the bottom, Leicester and Leeds, we saw with Leeds yesterday how they played. They know how that game is going to be a similar one with Sam, how the team be set up 4-5-1. Playing the counter-attack, set pieces, depending on that. But it'll be a difficult match. Brighton, we've spoken about already. They're chasing Champions League place as things stand. Leicester in the relegation zone as well. They need the points, so they got to. But they're in the position they're in because they've been having the poor season. Chelsea away looks like an easy match because of Chelsea's form. But nonetheless, Chelsea have real quality and will want to finish the season. If they can disrupt somebody else's chance of getting to Champions League, I'm sure they'll want to do that. What Chelsea will turn up for that game, who knows? After 6 defeats in a row, they won yesterday. How will they be? But they certainly have the players and the quality to give Newcastle a match at home in the last game. So, they've a bit to do yet, Newcastle. But either way, it's been a great season. I think they'll still make it.
And you mentioned Brighton there as well, Brian. As you said earlier, they're going to play tomorrow. They're at home against Everton. It's a 5:30 kickoff. There is some talk Evan Ferguson could make his return from injury in that game, which would be a huge boost for, I suppose, Irish football fans watching on. But for himself, having just signed that long-term deal with Brighton, how key do you think he could be if he is fit for Brighton in the last few games?
Well, I think it'll be an important boost for them, but not absolutely critical for them, because they played so well without him in recent weeks. They brought in some new young players into the team who have had an amazing impact, really. And you know, I think managers want to have. I mean, he's been in the team as a starter since the World Cup on a fairly regular basis. Obviously, the manager thinks he's the best player they have in that position when he's fitting well. So if he is fitting well, I would say he would start on the bench the next match, and then he might start the following game after that. If unless one of the other players steps up and produces magic to keep him out of the team. But obviously it'd be better for Brighton if they have him available, because they see him as an very important player, a first choice, first 11 player when he's fit. That's what he's developed into.
It was interesting, just to ask you finally, Brian, on Ferguson, because he signed that new long-term deal. Did you look at that? He's 18 years of age. He's got 4 Premier League goals this season and 13 appearances. He's got 3 in the FA Cup as well. Did you see that as kind of Brighton making sure they've got him for next season, or is it kind of protecting the assets of a big club comes in this summer that they're going to get a lot of money for him? What way would you look at that? And do you even think Ferguson should stay at Brighton next season, even if a big offer comes in, just to get more Premier League experience?
Well, I think protecting their asset and rewarding the player for his performances would have been behind that. That there was, he obviously had a half decent contract for his age, but when a young player breaks into the first team, it changes his position in the pecking order in the club, and that I'm talking about the pecking order in terms of who's paid the most money. And strikers are generally paid the most money because it's the hardest area of the pitch to play in. So they would have wanted to protect their asset, but also to protect their asset that they get a proper fee for him if and when he is to move on, if he does ever move on, but also to reward the player for making the progress he has played. I mean, he should be up there with the players who are playing in the regular best 11 of the manager on the wages scale. He should be up there. He wouldn't be on the wage that, say, Lewis Dunk should be on, but he should be on the players' wages who are probably a little bit older on him, but been in the team maybe a year or two longer. So that's how I see it. But I think the question of whether he should stay or not, I think he should stay at Brighton. I think he will get wise advice in relation to that. While he might be ambitious to want to get to one of the, let's say, super clubs in the future, I mean, why wouldn't he stay at Brighton? If he goes to, you see that with young players sometimes. You see with some of the players who signed for Chelsea this season, even likes of Mudryk, who has been a bit of to a degree, a bit of a one-season wonder, and he went to Chelsea for massive money, and he hasn't produced it. He's shown little flashes of it. He's in a team and a club that's suffering at the moment, but I think he's in a very stable club. Even the change of manager, Potter to De Zerbi, has been almost seamless, but it's improved. And I think he'd be better to stay in that environment where the manager he's obviously an exceptional coach. He's had the confidence in him to put him into the team and to guide him through his first season. I think he should stay there. Moving to another club where the expectation level would be very high. If he went to, say, one of the top 6 or 7 teams that are regularly above Brighton. I mean, Brighton are up there at the moment, but the teams who we'd expect that Chelsea will come back into that picture next year, that Liverpool will be better than they are this year, that Spurs will be still somewhere up around there with the other teams that are there. Newcastle have broken in with Arsenal, Manchester United, Manchester City also. Would he be better to go to one of them now? I wouldn't think so. He needs to get games under his belt, experience under his belt, develop physically, technically and tactically. And I believe that. But then if, you know, somebody does another Chelsea one on it, and the sort of money that Brighton got for Cucurella after one season in the team, if that sort of mad money arrives on their doorstep again, Brighton might say, okay, we've got other, I think it's Inacio, the young player they brought in recently, who's been absolutely brilliant, unheard of previously, and there's been one or two others as well. They always seem to have the next player ready to replace the ones who are sold on. You know, they might concede, but I think he'd be better off staying with Brighton.
Great stuff, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you.